Okay, today we have a special guest on. It is my honor and pleasure to have Ang Peng Siong. He is an amazing athlete and was one of my, when I was in swimming, I got a chance to see him swim, and he's just absolutely phenomenal to watch swim. He's now got a fantastic program in Singapore. That swimmers come in from all over the world to join him and to see his type of training. And Xiang, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
John, it's a pleasure, and it's again, thank you for the opportunity to be able to go onto your show. Always ready to share.
Okay, thank you. Well, we're going to learn a little bit about where you came from and some of your great experiences, and then we're going to go on to see a little bit about your amazing program, if you don't mind.
Sure. Maybe we could start off with the video first.
Yes, that would be wonderful.
People would understand which era we are from.
That's right.
Which period of time
and we're from the same era, because I used to watch you swim and then swim my race. So that's right.
Okay, so
his time set in 1981. Chuck Samuels, please tell us our lane assignment.
Now, what pool is this in? Almost looks like Indianapolis.
It's Florida, University of Florida.
Oh, is this University of Florida?
Gainesville.
Okay.
I believe so. Sorry.
Here we go.
In lane 2, a freshman at the University of Texas, representing
Texas, of course, right?
Yeah.
In lane 3,
Eddie Reese program.
100-meter backstroke at the last year's long course championship.
There he is.
Yep.
Illinois.
I know we recruited Tom, but didn't get him. At Indiana.
American record holder and defending champion, a senior at UCLA, coming for the Mission Viejo Nadadores, Robin Leamy.
And this guy's pretty quick too.
Yes.
5, a native of Singapore.
There you go.
Yep, yep.
University of Houston, representing Houston, Chong Ang.
Wow.
In lane 6, a member of the 1980 U.S. Olympic team, representing Santa Clara, Chris Kavanaugh.
Oh, I remember Chris.
200-yard freestyles.
Rowdy Gaines.
200-meter freestyles. Coming for the War Eagle swim team, Rowdy Gaines.
What a group.
Yeah.
Here at the University of California at Santa Barbara, representing the Santa Barbara Swim Club, Ken Neff.
So it's just an honor to stand up with everybody there to start with, right? These are amazing swimmers.
Yep, yep.
Better than anyone. His top challenger in lane 7, Rowdy Gaines.
You got to see the trademark of Tom Yeager.
Yes, you're going to see the start, right?
Yes.
Ever so important in this race. This is the most difficult event for the meet starter to get off successfully.
He did that at the 1986 World Championships again in Madrid.
Got it. Yeah, that was an amazing start. I remember they used to have that poster up of him. Okay, what lane are you in here?
Lane 5, white cap.
Very good. Great lane.
Next to Robin. That's Tom.
Yep. Amazing.
That time also going in Tom Yeager.
And back then you could do those false starts, and they always did, right?
And I think it was intentional to distract the other swimmers.
Yes. I actually have a broken tooth because of one of those in Chicago Circle. Yeah, I hit the bottom and it cracked my tooth. Somebody else had done it, and I knew he was going to do it, so I just kind of warmed up. I never did that again.
And the last one off the block was lane number 6, Chris Kavanaugh. He had a delayed reaction there, but out in front is lane number 4, Robin Leamy, the defending champion of this event. And off the wall first was Robin Leamy, the center of your screen. He is coming without a cap. But lane 5, Chong Ang, University of Houston.
Look at you. Wow, you really took it there.
Garnier coming on strong, but Levy might have just touched him. He did not.
Wow.
University of Houston.
A little bit of excitement there.
It is. It is.
Wow. That's fantastic. And you know, that's the best thing when people shake hands at the end there like that, right?
Yeah. And Coach Phil is all thrilled.
Oh yeah, he was.
This national title.
Congratulations. That's a wonderful. Yep, that's amazing. Wonderful. Wow. Let's start off with just what got you into swimming to start with.
Well, my dad was a pool supervisor at this. Well, the name of the pool is called Farrer Park Swimming Complex, and back then there were only maybe a handful of public pools, and he was one of the supervisors of that pool. So I suppose you being his son, you know, you kind of get to sneak in and swim a little bit more than others. So and that's where I learned how to swim, and you know, my dad actually brought me up, training me every day. And he was the one that actually introduced strength training into the swimming
and he was an
program.
amazing athlete himself, is that right?
Yes, he represented Singapore at the '64 Tokyo Olympics. And actually he fell sick there, and he actually missed out on his weight classification. So he was disqualified because he fell sick and lost a lot of weight.
Gotcha.
So he couldn't compete. But and he went on to actually train one of the most successful judo team Singapore ever had at the Southeast Asian Games, where they won 7 gold medals at the 1973 Southeast Asian Games in Singapore.
So in some ways, you're kind of following in his footsteps, it seems like, but just in a different sport.
Yep. You know, I grew up watching him and, you know, observing how he is so passionate about what he does. And I still get comments even to today about how my dad was at the pool, at the judo club, how he has inspired so many people.
Wow.
And that's something that I felt, you know, he's always going to be my source of inspiration. Yeah.
Well, I can tell you this, you were, I think, for all of us in many ways, because you were always a serious athlete, but not one that, you know, you're obviously enjoying yourself, but a very serious, and we, at least from the outside, we saw you as a very serious athlete, very dedicated, I would say this, very classy. And that's what everybody saw. And I can imagine that your parents would be so proud of that. And then to see the capabilities that came out of, and I think a lot of it, from what I was looking at least to appear from the outside, came from your mental capabilities. You had a great body, but it was really an explosive body, but it was more your mental capabilities that were so phenomenal.
Well, I think the level of discipline, again, came about with my dad. And, you know, being in judo, it is all about being focused, being disciplined, and it's almost Zen-like in that sport. And there is always this level of respect. When you go into the dojo, you have to bow to the, you know, basically for appreciating the use of the facility. And then the next thing you bow is to, actually there is like a picture of the founder for the sport. And then lastly is to your teacher. So when you're growing up in that kind of environment, and when you see your dad, you know, instilling that level of connection to the sport, you know, I kind of use that to what I do in swimming.
Like if you're a lot of times when I'm training coaches and coach groups, and you sit them down and you say, you know, what's the most important aspect of swimming? And eventually, you know, they start off with, oh, it's the training and it's the, you know, it's the technique. Eventually they all come to the same conclusion. It's actually, you know, it's like 90% mental. You hear this all the time. It's, you know, it's mental.
Yeah.
And I think you and I kind of believe a lot of that to, in the same idea. It's mental. And if that's the case, I ask him another question. So if it's 90% mental, what tools do you have to help your swimmers with to train the mind?
Mm-hmm.
And you obviously got a lot of development from watching your dad.
Yeah.
Which is a huge advantage.
Well, I think, again, being a sprinter, it's kind of unique, and I was fortunate to have Phil Hansel, because I'll spend hours on deck stretching and doing weights, while the rest of the teammates are training and getting their mileage. He understood that for a sprinter. So I was pretty blessed with that. And if you talk about the mental approach, I think for me it's learning from others and observing how they prepare themselves for the races. So I will always observe who are the best swimmers and what are their habits. And I try to, emulate what they do. So one of the
I think you not only emulated it, you kind of expanded it. You did so great.
One of the things was just putting on the headphones and listening to the kind of music that's going to get you hyped up. Believe it or not, on my tape, it was Donna Summers.
Interesting. So each person, right, they have a different thing that connects with them, and you got to find what that is, right?
Yes. And you just got to kind of find what works for you. And then the other thing is just putting the hood over your head. And again, coaches would tell you, always drop 2 walls, the binders on the horse that kind of blocks the vision on the side, and minimize any distraction, and just focus on what you're going to do in the race. And as you grow up, you kind of learn that you cannot overthink.
I was just going to ask you about that, because a lot of people try to logic it through, and racing, like the race that we just saw, is not logical at that moment, if I'm right. That's emotional.
Yeah. And a lot of that has to be done in training. So if you do too much of that in your race days, when the days you're going to race, you're just confusing yourself.
You're going to get out of what we call hot mode and into logical mode or cool mode, right? Where you and I right now are talking and we're in cool mode, right? But when we get into a race, we're very different.
Yes.
Do you find like a mental transition there almost when you get into that mode, like there's a different person there?
Well, every swimmer would have a ritual of what they want to do before the race. And that's the after so many races, you kind of find what works for you, and you just follow that consistently. Yeah.
And the ritual, if I'm right, serves the race versus the ritual serving the ritual. Is that right?
Yeah.
It has to be. So in other words, if the race has to be the ultimate, that ritual drives your ability to perform better.
Well, one of my best races was actually back in 1984, Los Angeles, for the 100 free, and that's not my event. And
yes, you're a 50 swimmer.
Yeah. So I've always falter after the turn, because probably it could be the lack of training base to finish the race, or too focused on going out too hard and so forth. But that race, I did my best time, 51:09, and I won the B Consuls.
Oh,
and and actually, when I finished, I wasn't tired at all. And Phil said, hey, just go out there and just enjoy the race, and what you have done in training is all done, and now it's just go out and
at that point you can't worry about your training, right?
Yeah.
You got what you got.
Yeah. So
Wow.
yeah, that was one of my best hundreds that I've ever performed. Most races I would start struggling right after the turn, and that's something that we picked up with the 100 races, because I would always come back to Singapore for the Southeast Asian Games around the region, and we worked on the back end speed.
Got it.
So yeah, Phil would say, hey, just keep the first 50 strong, but conserve your energy for the back end speed.
I noticed when you got behind those blocks, I mean, there were a lot of guys that were kind of, had built up a lot of muscle. When I was a kid, I was very skinny. I had the blue lips and the chattering teeth, and my dad used to say, turn sideways, stick out your tongue. You look just like a zipper. And he used to call me the X-ray. So I was really skinny. So it took me a long time to build that muscle up. When you were a kid, were you heavily muscled to start with, or?
No, I was normal frame, but the key thing was my dad would consistently get us to do chin-ups, push-ups, sit-ups, squats.
My dad was in the military. I was doing the same thing.
Yeah. And those chin-ups, if you're asked to do 10, okay, my dad is gonna do this. Okay, 8, 9, 10. Okay, let's do another one.
Right. It pushes you, right?
Yeah, and then another one, and you just keep trying, So he was already teaching me how to break barriers, and keep encouraging me to improve on the counts.
It sounds like you were very bonded to your dad.
Oh, we don't speak much, but when we are together, yes, we are very close. Yeah.
Got it. When did you start really like strengthening yourself heavily? It sounds like you got a good base to start with, but then I noticed something that you'd said about that you had a great strength training coach later too.
Well, during my childhood, my dad was the main coach for my strength, and he was coaching at a time where many coaches would avoid weight training, and they say weight training is not good for swimmers.
Do you agree with that at all, or no?
No.
I'm with you. I do not agree with that.
Especially if you're going to be a sprinter. But even as a child, I think that helped me build up my motor skills and my strength, and I was able to move my own body weight through the chin-ups, through the push-ups, without struggling. Nowadays, you see many of the kids, they could hardly do a proper push-up or even a nice chin-up. So when I was young, I'll do at least 3 times a week with my dad, and this is at home. It's make do, and he'll collect old dumbbells and barbells and benches just to set up at home so that we can do the exercises. And he's also into Qigong, the ancient Chinese art of breathing. And it's quite amazing. He enjoys reading many of the books on martial arts and Qigong, and he actually applies that to us when we train. So like how we manage our breath, how we like you tell us to do no breathers in the pool. Again, that's something that sometimes coaches don't do enough, because when you hold your breath, you're kind of forced into being, well, you really have to be very efficient to finish at 25 meters or 50 meters or 75 meters, without taking a breath.
Yes.
So, yeah, it teaches the mind and the body to adapt.
And you have to do a lot. And I've done some sets, and of course you want to be careful with, not breathing too far and things like that. And I know back in our day, we went to some more limits than we probably should have in some cases, but I can say that I did a lot of that. And and to me, it made you think and have internal conversations with
Yeah.
who you
Yeah.
were
Yeah.
and you know what you could accomplish. It was a
Yes.
very different
Yes.
experience.
So it has to be applied correctly.
Yes.
And cautious.
Carefully and safely.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. So, you know, he was doing things that not many traditional coaches would do. Instead of swimming laps, you know, he'll get me to focus on areas that would help me in my body development. And in swimming itself, I would actually do more sprints rather than distance. And I remember I was training with a high school program in Singapore, and you know the coaches from the school, they were kind enough to take me on also. So I was exposed to their program, and they did a lot of sprints also. So I was really exposed to many sprint programs without knowing there were sprint programs.
It sounds like there was a lot of internal development versus just like external, because if you're thinking and focusing on yourself and expanding your capabilities inside, I noticed that you didn't seem to be shaken by anything. I'm wondering where, you know, that source of confidence came from you. Because you've got an amazing confidence, and people can see it. It's like, you know, you see somebody that they have a really big body and a tiny personality, and then some people they've got this, you know, smaller body and their personality is like this big, and it doesn't seem like your body can hold your personality.
That's the psychology of sports, isn't it?
It is.
I think again it has to do with my dad, how he carries himself. He doesn't really talk much. You know, he does it through his actions and all that. So basically, I'm just doing what I've learned from him, and let the action do the talking. You know.
Yeah. So then you went from there, and then you got to, and that's a really interesting journey. It's a big decision in life to go to a different country.
You know, actually, I was just so happy to be in the States. I remember when Phil Ansel recruited me back in Hawaii, and he offered the scholarship, and had to, you know, ask my dad, was it okay? And my dad couldn't afford to buy a plane ticket, you know, to send me.
That was my family too.
Yeah. But he managed to garner some support, and friends, you know, contributed to the the source of the fund, and we were able to get the money for the air ticket. So when I had the opportunity, my dad said, hey, you know, whatever it is, we'll find the money for it, for the air ticket. You just go and do your best, you know.
So you had the support there from your family. Wow,
my dad knew how important this is, and again, it's a life-changing experience. Without the experience in the U.S., I wouldn't be where I am.
I went. It's funnier. I wasn't actually going to go on to college. Where I lived was a small fishing village in Maine, and so all my buddies were going in to be fishermen. What's that?
They got good lobsters there.
You got it. That's right. I was a lobsterman. That's right. And so they were all lobstermen, you know, and so we were all, and so I was going to go where the other people were. And my dad said, why don't you try the University of Pittsburgh? They want to have you swim there. And so I didn't really want to, but I said, yeah, I'll try it. And after a year there, I did pretty well in school, and I swam well. And I met Doc Counsilman when I was there. They came to swim us. And so I said to my dad, I'd like to transfer to Indiana. And he's, that's going to be, I can't imagine what it would cost to train under Doc Counsilman. It's got to be so much. And actually, it was half the price of the University of Pittsburgh. So he got like a half ride right there, scholarship. And then they gave me a scholarship after a redshirt year. And so we had the same situation where it was just not affordable for us. And we were lucky to have people that supported us. And now, is in Singapore, do they teach English to start with?
Yes, we are
I was
under
going
the
to say your
British.
English is phenomenal. So
We are under the British, so that was the language we use. English was
so you didn't have any barrier. That was good.
Yeah, and then we will still continue with our mother tongue in Chinese. We have 4 national languages in Singapore: English, Chinese, Malay, and Tamil.
So tell me a little bit, because you went through this amazing career. You've done some incredible things in your swimming, and then now you've built a swimming school. Is that right?
Well, we operate a swim school and a swim club. So the idea came about with, again, Phil Hansel, and being a college coach those days, they don't pay very well. I think it was like getting 15,000.
Yeah, they had a very, very small, even in Doc Counsilman too. Yeah, same thing.
Yeah.
Low
so
pay.
he would actually have his swim school, Phil Hansel's Swim Academy in the city of Houston. And again, what's amazing is that that swim academy allows him to continue his passion in college coaching. So that was the model that I kind of wanted to do when I came back home, and because my passion is still in competitive coaching.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so it was almost like back then they had what their passion was almost like a hobby in a way, because they couldn't financially support it so well. And then they did other things to allow them to, these incredible beings at what they did, and they had to support their ability to do it.
Yeah. So
something else.
Eventually it's almost like an ecosystem on its own. In order to, well, you have a business side of it, and then you have a non-profit side of it. So it goes hand in hand, and you're kind of reaching out to the community and giving back to the community.
And one feeds the other sometimes, even, right?
Yes. And I mean, if you're passionate about competitive coaching, I think that's the way to go, and to survive, and not come to a point where you compromise your values and your philosophy in coaching. Because when you are solely recruited as a competitive coach, then especially under a club where there are many members, then you have to deal with many different stakeholders, and everyone has their different ideas of how things ought to be run, and that is always quite.
And to run when you're well trained and you know what you're doing, that actually just gets in the way a lot of times. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. So I've seen that. So yeah, I'm trying to avoid all that and continue with what we can do and develop as a growing entity. Yeah.
I've had so many coaches that I see, and one in particular that I'm thinking about, that he was starting a strength program, and then one of the parents came in and said, our doctor says that's not a good strength program for our swimmer. And he said, oh, okay, well, what do they want? So then he started trying to put theirs in, and then another parent said, well, our doctor doesn't think that doesn't work.
Yes.
It drove him crazy.
We get that with swimming also, and so again, I think the key thing is to understand what your swim school culture, combined swim school and swim club, what the culture is, what the philosophy is, and this is one of the other areas that I kind of picked up is from the Carlisle Swimming in Australia, under Forbes Carlisle. And I visited their program, and I remember their motto, and now I'm using that as basically my mantra to move forward with the swim school and the club. And the mantra is, we are not here to create champions, but an environment where champions are inevitable.
Wow.
That's an amazing
That's
tagline.
fantastic.
Yeah, and it's so, appropriate in our industry.
Yes, it's right. You create the environment where they can grow.
Yes, yeah.
Wow.
And that's where you kind of grow, and then you will attract the people that shares the same values and the same philosophy. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I feel like we have so many things in common, but we've never actually touched. And that's fantastic. You know what I mean? It's funny. We live the same life for the same amount of years. And we've been doing the same thing in different parts of the world.
But I think the other thing is the ESCA coaches conference and convention. I think that's where we kind of align
Right.
our philosophies and our thinking.
Right. So there's a source of information.
Yeah, I mean, John Lennon, I've met him a couple of times. Amazing guy. So, passionate about what he's doing. And again, this is that kind of sharing culture is what makes the difference. And
that's so important, isn't it, to get that information in people's hands anywhere they are in the world? Because I came from a, like I said, way up in Maine, and nobody knew anything about swimming. I don't know how many major athletes from a swimming standpoint were around in Singapore at the time that you were growing up. But for me, it was definitely not the sport to be in my town. It didn't matter for me, but
yeah.
Amazing.
Well, I think in Singapore, we have a very strong swimming. Many of the families would send their kids for swimming lessons. And over the years, we have produced actually amazing individual swimmers, not in very large groups, but there are moments where there's always this individual who's been doing really well, and then that inspires the next generation, and then the next generation.
So it keeps it flowing, and there's someone to look up to and build on, right?
Finally, we got our gold medal with Joseph Schooling.
Wow.
that is, the tip of it, and hopefully, again, that will inspire the next generation.
Right. It makes a big difference to have that. And we're working with some teams in India right now, and they're trying to build that same type of platform where you have people that are really succeeding well and showing what they can do.
And I think the US model and the Japanese model, they share a lot of similarities, where high school programs are highly competitive, and then college program is also just as competitive. And those are the nice age group that you want to tag on. I see that correlation between those two countries and how the system has really moved forward, and producing really top quality swimmers across the age groups, and all the way to the university. Whereas in Singapore, we struggle with that because Asians, we tend to be more academic driven. So at the university level, most of them would have actually given up.
Right, and switched over to really focusing on the academics.
Yes. Yeah. So again, that's where a few of the swimmers that went over to the States were able to continue to pursue, the sport and do well. So I think here again, we tend to struggle, but I like the model where the US and the Americans, create, with the schools being proactive in promoting sports as a way of life. Yeah.
I can tell you this from our company. We've been in business about 32 years or so. And I can tell you in our country, and we've noticed this particularly in our business, that we have a much heavier volume of and population in our company of Asian people comparatively with the population, general population. And so we have almost, I'd say maybe 60% of our participants between 40 and 60 are Asian. And I think, yeah, Asian and from India and things like this, but mainly, more towards, kind of, I would say a lot of Chinese folks, a lot of, folks from
Southeast Asia,
kind of all over in that side of it. And I think, and I've traveled a number of times over there to teach, but I think it has to do with the like just what you mentioned. It's the concentration on academics, and we're an educational company. Yep. So we have we do it through visual. So everything is learning is visual, like avatars and things like this. And I think a lot of it has to do with the emphasize that education. It's so important to them. And so some will even take their kids out of school, which we don't recommend, but to come over and train with us, or on a daily basis, when they're coming in, they'll skip a class or something like that to come. And I tell them, I don't think you should do that. So they're learning more here sometimes than they would at school, because we teach a lot of life lessons.
Right.
And I think that swimming, to me, is like a microcosm to be able to teach life.
Yes. Well, now with the COVID-19 thing, online learning is the norm.
Yes.
And many of these Asian families are quite, used to homeschool.
Yes.
Learning. So taking time off, I can rest. I think you can be rest assured that the parents still keep them on the academic route.
Yes, absolutely. And I know we do with our kids. So yeah.
So I think probably for us, it's a bit too skewed towards academic and not enough in sports. Yeah.
Got it. So if somebody wanted to come over and work with you, they could actually work with your school. Is that right?
Well, the swim club program,
The swim club program, they could come in and work with you that way.
Yes.
How would they get a hold of you to do that?
Well, we have a website. If you type in Aquatic Performance Swim Club, then once you Google, it will reflect on the search.
Okay, got it. So Aquatic Performance Swim Club.
APSC.
Okay,
initials,
got it.
APSC, yeah.
Got it. And if you have any trouble doing that, you can always contact Fluid Mechanics, and we'll be glad to pass them on so that you get over there. That would be wonderful. We love what we know. We sent some swimmers over to see you. Just from what we had heard, you'd done some phenomenal things. They came back and they said it was so challenging and so fantastic. They just love working with you. So
we love to challenge them.
Yeah. And you have the skills to do it, so that's great.
We do our best.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed this, and what an honor it is to have you on the show. Siong, I really appreciate it. I feel like I've found a friend that I've been missing for years, and we just got a chance to meet. So thank you so much.
No, thank you, John, again for this opportunity. It's really nice catching up.
Yes.
Again, it's like
I'd love to talk again sometime soon.
Plenty to talk about.
Okay.
And obviously, there's going to be a lot to learn from you too.
Okay, great. Thanks again.